We did it. We did it. We finished the OC. We finished it. The OC's done. All 4 seasons, baby, down the hatch. Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time in Newport Beach. So the 4th season of the OC, if you watched my season 3 analysis video, which you definitely should before watching this one, it's kind of like a journey. It's a journey of analysis, of insight. Definitely start with season 1. That goes for every show that I cover. Start with the first episode because it's a journey, and we can really see the effects that this show can have in real time. And the OC, this is definitely my first time watching the 4th season. I knew nothing about this season at all. I was thrilled to see that I was having a really, really good time. Because if you watched my season 3 analysis video, I expressed a lot of displeasure. I really didn't like season 3, and I really don't think anyone liked season 3 too much, even its most devoted fans. Uh, it was repetition in its most nauseating and toxic form. Toxic because I think it destroyed a lot of the goodwill that the first couple seasons of the show built up. Season 4, they're having a lot more fun with it, and I feel like a lot of the ensemble is energetic again. They're devoted again. Adam Brody, who I felt gave a half-hearted portrayal of Seth Cohen in season 3, enters season 4. Uh, I think with like a newfound inspiration, he's reignited and he's once again the most chaotically funny and awkwardly touching and sensitive character on the show. I started this series with Seth Cohen as my one and only, and I'm ending it that way. I think Seth Cohen gave me the most sophisticated themes to investigate, especially within myself, but also within the OC as a piece of postmodern teen drama. I feel like Josh Schwartz and the writers are having, I think that they're just having a generally good time and they're doing a lot of kind of daringly creative things with the 4th season. And I have read statements from Josh Schwartz being like, well, when we knew that the show was over, it kind of gave us all of the creative freedom in the world to really try different things. And this show does, the season does. And it makes a lot of gambles. And, I think it leaves the casino just a little bit richer on account of their daring and their postmodern determination. That said, the 4th season isn't really powerful. Um, the 2nd season of the show is the show at its most powerful. The first season was uh, pretty sensitive too. Those first 2 seasons, I think the show said all it could say, and the 3rd season was very upsetting from a compositional and philosophical viewpoint for me personally. And season 4 is fun. There's a lot more comedy, and the humor is usually always good, and often it's heartfelt, but it really isn't saying anything. Even the finale isn't honestly saying anything. In fact, the finale feels so contrived, and not in the usual like artistic like ways. Uh, it's not contrived because soap operas or telenovelas are contrived. It's contrived because it's desperate to give everyone a happy ending. And while I think that they're more creative in the 4th season, I do feel like the definition of scraping the bottom of the barrel is personified within Kevin Sorbo as Frank Atwood, as Ryan's father. That irritated me to no end, like made my blood boil. Not only because I think Kevin Sorbo is incredibly annoying and a bad actor, but I also felt that uh, Frank beat his kids and his girlfriend or his wife. He beat Ryan's mom and he beat Trey and he beat Ryan. And now we're cool with them. And also inviting Frank Atwood back, I think it would have been fine if We never saw Frank Atwood again after he was exposed for lying about dying of cancer by Sandy. I think it would have been fine. I would have been fine with that. But keeping him around for a happy ending to be part of the Coopers is fucking vapid. It's a vapid thing for the show to do. It's probably the most vapid thing the show's ever done. I prefer the repetition of season three to the entire narrative drive or focus on Frank Atwood because it creates the elephant in the room of Trey. Clearly, Frank, Ryan is fine. He's doing splendidly. You know who I bet is kind of struggling? Trey, who you are responsible for as well, for creating that fucking ticking time bomb of violent sensitivity. Why don't you go see how Trey's doing? Ryan's clearly fine, but I'm glad you get to have your fucking dreamy Julie Cooper new family. Fuck you. Fuck the whole Frank storyline. Fuck storylines that create that make invisible problems impossible to ignore. You made Trey visible by having Frank there, completely uncaring about whether or not Trey is fine, because anybody can guarantee you that Trey is probably desperate somewhere and could have probably used a father figure, a reformed one. So if you really did change, what a fucking stupid storyline. I didn't like that at all. I didn't think the finale had a lot of punch. What's good about the fourth season is a lot of the comedy. Chris Pratt is in this season as Chester, actually, as this ultra rich, far left hypocrite um, that Summer uh, gets radicalized by at Brown while she and Seth are apart during the beginning of this season. He's very funny. Seth Cohen's very funny. Rachel Bilson as Summer is still adorable and incredibly funny. And I think that we finally have chemistry for Ryan Atwood, because I never felt that, like there was genuine chemistry between Ryan and Marissa. I loved Marissa to death. I loved her to death, but I never, outside of that Ferris wheel kiss, there was nothing that felt passionate and truthful about those two destined one true loves. I never bought that for a moment. So I welcomed Taylor with open arms into the main ensemble as a love interest for Ryan, because they actually have a lot of chemistry. And it was really nice to see that. And she was also able to bring out other qualities within Ben McKenzie. Like, he is actually funny, and um, he can be really sensitive too, in a way that is really endearing and youthful and truthful. So I think that I think that the show benefited from highlighting and spotlighting Taylor in a very large way. So that was a good gamble. And also, I like Caitlin being spotlighted in this season as well. Caitlin's great. Willa Holland, I believe, the actor's name was, did wonderfully. I really liked her friendship with Bullet, the insane Republican billionaire cowboy who is in love with Julie Cooper. And also on this topic um, of Caitlin Cooper, Caitlin and Julie had a lot of great moments here. They truly they were I truly felt their connection, mother daughter. It was really nice, actually. And I think we were able to process certain philosophical remnants left by the death of Marissa Cooper. And I also appreciate that this season didn't immediately reestablish a status quo, like a narrative status quo for the show itself, for its premise, because I feel like season three did that pretty immediately, after the whole Trey tragedy. The show immediately set things back to normal and redid the whole season. Whereas season four, the death of Marissa is a thing that is constantly felt throughout the majority of its 16 episode run. And I like that Marissa's death does have visible and long lasting impact on these characters, and that we didn't just revert to its original premise, so that we can build something similar on top of it. This season wasn't repetitive at the very least, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for that, but it doesn't say anything powerful. The season finale is a bit too comedic for my taste. The ending montage was nice, and it did strike my heartstrings with nostalgia and with like an affectionate. But it stirred my affections for the early episodes of the show by having me revisit them with Ryan going through the empty house. But even that concept had been done before. Had been done a million times before, since its very first couple of episodes with the empty model home. I talked about this, I think, ad nauseum in these videos that there's something beautifully aching about the spaciousness of luxury within these model mansions, and there's something that is so tragic and lonely about these spaces when they are incredibly empty. Yet we have here Ryan looking at the memories within them that seem to give these places, it seem to animate these places with romantic and with romantic tension and with angst and with hope, with a lot of hope. And Summer and Seth get married. We had every happy ending possible. We end on Ryan looking at a kid who looks remarkably like a younger version of himself, asking him if he needs any help. Um, the show had nothing new to say. So while I enjoyed season four and while I enjoyed certain kind of like meta remarks about we could have squeezed a few more years out of this, a few more seasons, and I agree you probably could have. The show said everything it needed to say within the first two seasons. Now, uh, at the risk of because just saying that could make me sound pretty fucking arrogant. So let's say once and for all, what was the OC saying? What was the OC saying? So if I'm saying that they just repeated it over and over again after they've already made the statement clear, what are they saying? Because I think it said incredibly profound things. Ryan didn't come into Newport Beach to tear it down or to even help it reach a new sincerity. I'm not really focused on that class stratification there within that point of the plot. What really interests me, I think, are Marissa Cooper and Ryan. I think are at the center of the philosophical currents and themes of the OC proper, and that is the attraction felt between Ryan and Marissa. Or you can use Ryan as this centerpiece, as this less fortunate. Let's just use him as the symbol of the less fortunate and how the ultra rich community around him, um, they feel inspired by him in different ways, almost inherently. Like there's something intrinsic about Ryan. And I think that that part is truthful. There's something intrinsic about those less fortunate that drive others to uh, be better, simply enough. And what Marissa would see in Ryan is authenticity or danger, something that is unpredictable. And what Sandy and Kirsten see in Ryan is the opportunity to nurture a rebellious part of themselves and give back to to and to give back um, to representation of extreme wealth in a way that is genuine. Seth, of course, sees within him uh, a representation of manhood. Maybe they all see representations within Ryan, because I think a lot of it has to do with projection. Because they spend a lot of the fourth season being like, none of us would have been at all the same without you, Ryan. And if you watch my season one video, I don't buy that for a moment. I don't think Ryan did anything that the characters wouldn't have already done. They're like, you saved her life, you saved Marissa's life in Tijuana. And if my memory serves, the only reason she was even there was because of Seth and Ryan, like giving her a ride there. Like, Seth wouldn't have talked to Summer. I don't know, maybe I do vividly remember Seth meeting Anna at that debutante ball early in the season too, and I think that that's what stirred jealousy within Summer. to begin with, I don't actually think Ryan did a whole fuck of a lot to help weaponize certain archetypes and liberate others. I don't actually think he was as thematically or narratively important as the show seems to suggest. What I am saying, though, is that he is an inspiration to this ultra rich and insulated community that these ultra rich barons and debutantes can and socialites can look at him and see within him something that stirs a part of them that they thought was long dead. And it's an essential part of the human condition and the human experience. And that part is called passion. Simply, it's passion. And passion is truthful first and foremost. It might be curious that Sandy and Kirsten leave Newport Beach at the end of season 4 because it's not about bringing Newport Beach as a whole to a new sincerity. It's about bringing certain people within that pocket. Because it's not like they're going to move to Berkeley and become less rich. Not really. Like it's not really saying a whole lot. Let's be real about that. I do like that they abandon Newport Beach and they go somewhere else because it's not about that place. This isn't like Tree Hill or Cape Side being um like poetically symbolic of anything truly relevant. What's relevant to the OC isn't the OC, isn't Orange County. It's the people within it being thrust into a situation where they have to conflict with an outside element and how that outside element brings a certain kind of random tragedy and a certain kind of random danger into this perfectly safe community, but how random elements and unpredictability, that's the only way you can be actually authentic or passionate in any sort of way. And it's because it's through Ryan that happened. From there, you can get the most interesting themes of the show with like season 2 being that just because Ryan is this inherently inspirational thing, there are parts of Ryan that attracts others that are dark, that are terrible, that Ryan is ashamed of, and those things are best represented by Logan Marshall Green as his brother Trey in the most spectacular performance of the whole show, and one of the most spectacular performances in all of teen drama. It's fucking lovely. It's beautiful. Um, Trey is not just like someone who's vicious. He's hypersensitive and he is I think he's unwell. He's psychotic, but he is so sensitive and he is so I mean honestly he is so attractive and he is so dark and intense. And there's a large part of I think an ultra rich community that fetishizes the dark and intense and sexy parts of the lower class bad boy. And that's best expressed through Trey. And I think that's when the show gets at its most powerful when not only does the ultra rich have to vanquish that fetishization that they feel towards the lower class by shooting Trey in the back, with Marissa doing it since she was the most drawn to him in a sexual way, and she was also assaulted by him. That fetishism was the fetishization was punished within Marissa by Trey attempting to rape her on the beach. And then Trey, that's when he's at his most vicious and cruel, and also at his most sensitive because he, I believe, wants to die on that beach after he does that. And when the ultra rich gives you every every like unspoken line of body language that they are fetishizing you, that there is something that they find sexually interesting or passionate or curious and morbid about you, then you are going to act into that representation by making it a super exaggerated form of barbarism, and that's what Trey did. But also Ryan being our representation of lower class, our kid Chino, it's something that is real within him that he has to exorcise and vanquish. It's a demonic element that makes him who he is, and he has to get rid of. It's his blood, and it's something that may always be more truthful to him than any kind of new sincerity he can find, because tragedy hits harder than sincerity, especially when the tragedy itself is sincere, as the ending of season two was. Uh, the more I think about the ending of season two, the Trey storyline, even season two as a whole, I'm fascinated by it, and I think it's one of the best things ever developed by anyone. I feel like its importance is cosmic, and the OC season two is maybe the most masterful piece of teen drama there's ever been. And I hope that statement isn't taken lightly because I love One Tree Hill, Veronica Mars, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dawson's Creek. And yet I would put the OC season two above anything else that I've seen. And I'm being perfectly honest about that. What's curious is that I think the OC season one is lacking some vital philosophical materials. I think that season three is just a half-hearted, kind of vacant repetition of the events of season two, and that season four is good for a comedy, which kind of sucks because it starts off pretty powerful with placebos running up that hill in the first episode of season four. It's pretty emotionally intense until we get rid of Volchek, and then it's just a comedy. I'm basically watching Parks and Rec, and I don't want to be. I want to be watching the OC. I want to be watching How Our Lives Are Episodic. I want to be watching a soap opera. I want to be watching The Valley. I want to be watching the OC. And the OC, I think that season two was just too good. I think it was too good for this show to survive. But bravo to everyone involved with the first two seasons of the show. Bravo to everyone, because what you did is something that's so extraordinary that like I'm forever like in your debt, and I'm forever impressed by all of you. That goes for the crew, goes for the cast, goes for the writers, and it goes for even the network. Such a great job. You did such a powerful thing, and I feel that impact in my day-to-day life now. Like it's so good, and like not a day goes by that I don't think about Trey, Marissa, and Ryan and the tragedy that they experience in the final episode of season two, and the hide and seek by Imogen Heaps. I think of what you say, that you only meant well. I think about that every day. And the more I think about it, the more meaning I can derive from it, the more meaning I can find within it. And yeah, you guys did so well. You guys blew my mind. But season two was just too good, dude. Um, I agree with the show being canceled. I do admit that there was more creativity in the fourth season than in the third, but not enough creativity to maintain itself. I like that we had a fourth season. I like that we had these 16 episodes, but I don't really care about them. I don't really care about what they said because they didn't say anything important. And the way the show ended felt like a sanitized or uh extremely simplified resolution to season two's intense complexity. But I loved my time with these characters. Ryan, Seth, Summer, and Marissa. You're here forever now. Whether you like it or not, I care about each of you a lot. And I think I learned a lot from Marissa and Seth. I think I learned a lot from you too. Marissa was always its strongest and saddest point, and the show was able to convey its most tragic elements through her. And if our lives are truly episodic, if our lives are comprised of cliffhangers, special guests, reoccurring love interests, and surprise kisses, and even harrowing deaths, then That doesn't mean they're not meaningful. In fact, maybe it means they're more meaningful because it doesn't mean our lives are contrived. It doesn't mean that like an episodic existence isn't necessarily a contrived one. It's one with many different storylines and plots. And I guess that season three's repetition, you could argue that it benefits this episodic, our lives are episodic thesis that I'm working with because, of course, things will repeat themselves again. Life will get repetitious, especially if it is episodic. Some themes are ongoing and unending, especially the theme of tragedy and the deconstruction of tragedy within a postmodern teen context. Postmodern brats, while they're always exploding like stars, they are also subject to the same existential inertia that led them to that outburst in the first place. Just because our lives are episodic doesn't really make them meaningless. I think the OC presents ample evidence to the contrary. That if you pay attention and if you look out for the cues, if you listen for the lines, if you memorize your lines, if you're prepared and if you're ready, then you can be the star. You can be the star of your life. And if all of our lives are episodic, that also means that this kind of glamorous narration isn't solely the property and forms of expression of the ultra rich, of the incredibly beautiful. It's for those less fortunate. Those less fortunate can tend to make us a lot more compassionate. Those less fortunate tend to steal the spotlight, and for good reason. Because without Ryan Atwood, the OC would have felt empty. Without Ryan Atwood, without Trey Atwood, I wouldn't be so lost in thought. I think about those two brothers a lot right now, lately. I'm extremely impressed. So yeah, while I wouldn't say I despise the fourth season, I don't consider it the OC. It doesn't feel like the OC. The OC, to me, in my head canon, lasted 2 seasons, and Trey never walked out of that apartment. Trey died there. To me, the OC is a tragedy, not a triumph. To me, that's the way the OC should be. Because if our lives are episodic, well, every show has to end.